Ambassador Zethkar walked through the long metal corridors of Harmony 7 Station. His blue skin reflected the bright lights overhead as he moved toward the records hall. Today was his last day here before leaving for the Outer Rim territories. The Hegemony Coalition had given him an important mission, but first he needed to complete the standard briefing. The records hall stood massive before him. Its walls stretched higher than any building on his home planet. Inside, ancient computers hummed quietly, storing the history of every known species in the galaxy. Zethkar had been here many times, but the place still made him feel small. "Ambassador," came a voice from the shadows. The Keeper of Records stepped forward. The ancient being looked older than the stars themselves. Its gray skin was wrinkled, and its eyes glowed with a soft white light. Nobody knew exactly how old the Keepers were, but some said they had been alive since before faster-than-light travel existed. "Keeper," Zethkar bowed his head in respect. "I come for the final briefing." The Keeper moved slowly to a large screen on the wall. With a wave of its hand, star maps appeared. Red zones marked dangerous areas, while green zones showed safe space for travel. But Zethkar noticed something odd. There were small pockets of space marked in yellow scattered throughout the galaxy. "These are human territories," the Keeper explained, noticing where Zethkar was looking. "You must know the warning before you leave." Zethkar had heard the warning before. Every spacefarer knew it, but he had never really thought about what it meant. The Keeper pressed another button and a message played. The voice was cold and mechanical, but the words were clear. "Warning to all species. If they attack humans, they will become extinct." This message repeats in all known languages every standard hour across all communication channels. "I have heard this many times," Zethkar said, "but I never understood why. Humans are a young species. They only discovered faster-than-light travel 300 years ago. Most of our people have been traveling between stars for thousands of years." The Keeper's glowing eyes fixed on Zethkar. "Age means nothing when it comes to survival. But they control such a small part of space," Zethkar continued. "The records show they have only 12% of known territory. Their military is smaller than most major powers. Why does everyone fear them?" The Keeper walked to another console and pulled up more information. Numbers and charts filled the screen. "The galaxy has 847 known intelligent species," it said. "Most live in peace with each other. Wars happen, but they are small. Species fight over resources or territory, then make peace when the cost becomes too high." "That is normal," Zethkar agreed. "Yes, but humans are not normal." The Keeper touched the screen and new data appeared. "In the past 300 years, 15 species have attacked human settlements or ships. Would you like to know what happened to those 15 species?" Zethkar felt a chill run down his spine. He had never thought to look up that information. "What happened?" 3 are completely extinct. 7 exist only in small refugee populations scattered across neutral space. 5 gave up their military technology and now live as peaceful farming communities under galactic protection. The Keeper paused. None still exist as they were before they attacked humans. The young ambassador stared at the numbers. "That cannot be right. Humans are not known as a warrior species. They prefer trade and science. Indeed, they are excellent traders and brilliant scientists. They form friendships easily and are generous with their knowledge. Most species that meet humans peacefully benefit greatly from the relationship." The Keeper brought up trade records. Human medical technology has saved billions of lives across the galaxy. Their food production methods have ended hunger on dozens of worlds. And why? Because when cornered, humans do not just fight back. They evolve. Zethkar had never heard that word used that way before. "Evolve? You mean they change during their lifetime?" The Keeper nodded slowly, Other species adapt to their environment over thousands of generations. Humans adapt to their environment in a single generation. And when threatened with extinction, they adapt faster. That sounds impossible. Many thought so, until they saw it happen. The keeper pulled up an old recording. Zethkar could see a large meeting hall filled with delegates from many species. The image was grainy and old, but he could make out the panic on many faces. This was recorded during the HFY War, 90 years ago, the keeper explained. The Zephyrian Empire decided that humans were weak and slow. They attacked 17 human colonies. What happened? For the first year, the Zephyrians won every battle. Their technology was more advanced, their ships faster, their weapons stronger. The human military seemed helpless. The keeper paused the recording on the image of burning human ships. But then something changed. The recording continued. Now it showed different scenes. Human children being born with larger brains and faster reflexes. Human scientists making breakthrough discoveries in weeks instead of years. Human engineers building ships using technology that had not existed before the war started. The humans did not just learn to fight the Zephyrians, the keeper said. They learned to be better than the Zephyrians. By the end of the war, human technology was 50 years ahead of anything the Zephyrians had. Human tactics were so advanced that Zephyrian commanders could not understand them. Zethkar watched in amazement as the recording showed the final battle. Human ships moved like they could predict the future. They avoided enemy fire before it was even shot. They struck at weak points that should have been impossible to detect. The Zephyrian Empire controlled 200 star systems when the war began, the keeper said. When it ended, they had 3 barely livable planets and a population of less than 10 million. Where are they now? Farming worlds in the Outer Rim. They requested permission to give up all military technology in exchange for protection. The Galactic Council agreed. The keeper turned off the recording. They are peaceful now, but they wake up screaming from nightmares about human ships. Zethkar felt his stomach turn. But that was just one war. It has happened 14 other times. Some species learned the lesson faster than others. A few refused to surrender and fought until their species was too small to survive. The keeper looked directly at Zethkar. This is why the warning exists. Not as a threat, but as mercy. I understand, Zethkar said quietly. Do you? The warning is not about human aggression. It is about human evolution. When you threaten their survival, they become something that makes survival impossible for their enemies. The keeper moved toward the exit. Remember this when you reach the Outer Rim. There are always young species who think they know better than their elders. Zethkar followed the keeper out of the records hall. As they walked, he could hear the warning being broadcast again over the station's communication system. The same cold, mechanical voice speaking the same words. But now those words carried a weight he had never felt before. He thought about his mission to the Outer Rim territories. There were several young species there who had recently discovered faster than light travel. Some were aggressive and looking to expand their territory. Others were curious and wanted to meet new friends. As Zethkar boarded his ship, he made a decision. Along with his official diplomatic materials, he would carry copies of the records hall files. If any young species asked about humans, he would show them the truth. The warning resounded throughout the galaxy for a reason. Now he finally understood what that reason was. Admiral Crickstel of the Zephyrian Third Fleet stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the human colony burn below. New Terra was the 17th human world to fall to Zephyrian forces, and like all the others, it had been pathetically easy to conquer. The mammals put up no real fight, his tactical officer reported. Their defensive systems are at least 50 years behind our technology. Their ships are slow and their weapons are weak. Crickstel nodded with satisfaction. The Zephyrian High Command had been right to ignore the warnings from other species. Humans were clearly nothing more than primitive creatures who had gotten lucky with faster-than-light travel. Their reputation must have come from fighting even weaker species. How many human colonies remain in this sector? He asked. 12, Admiral. At this rate, we will control all human territory in this region within 6 months. 6 months. Crixtel liked that timeline. The human worlds were rich in rare minerals that the Zephyrian Empire needed. Once they were empty of humans, Zephyrian mining operations could begin. The Empire would be stronger than ever. But on the burned surface of New Terra, something was happening that Admiral Crixtel could not see from space. In the ruins of the human hospital, Dr. Sarah Chun was delivering a baby. The mother had gone into labor during the bombing, and somehow both had survived when the building's basement became their shelter. "It's a girl," Dr. Chun said, placing the newborn in her mother's arms. But as she looked at the baby, something made her pause. The child's eyes were already focused and alert in a way that newborns' eyes never were. When Dr. Chun held up her finger, the baby's eyes tracked the movement perfectly. "Is she okay?" the mother asked, exhausted and scared. "She's perfect," Dr. Chun replied, though she was not entirely sure that was the right word. The baby looked normal, but there was something different about her. Something Dr. Chun had never seen before. Across human space, similar scenes were playing out. On Earth, military scientists working around the clock to develop better weapons were making discoveries that should have taken years. Dr. James Park had been studying particle physics for 20 years. But in the 3 months since the Zephyrian attacks began, he had solved problems that had puzzled him his entire career. "This should be impossible," he told his assistant, staring at the equations on his computer screen. "I've been working on this problem for a decade, and suddenly the solution is obvious." His assistant, Dr. Maria Santos, looked up from her own work. "I know what you mean. Last week, I couldn't figure out how to improve our shield technology. Today, I designed a completely new type of protective field that's 10 times more effective." Neither scientist understood what was happening to them. They only knew that their minds seemed to be working faster and more clearly than ever before. Ideas that had once seemed impossible now appeared simple. Meanwhile, on the planet Kepler 442b, human children who had been born after the war started were showing remarkable abilities. 10-year-old Marcus Webb could solve mathematical problems that usually challenged university students. His teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, watched in amazement as he explained complex physics concepts to his classmates. "How do you know these things?" she asked him after class. Marcus shrugged. "I just do. It's like the information is already in my head, and I just have to remember it." Mrs. Rodriguez had heard similar reports from other teachers. Children across the colony were developing faster than normal. They learned languages in weeks instead of years. They understood technology that their parents could barely operate. Most strangely, they all seemed to instinctively understand military tactics and strategy, even though none had been taught such things. Back in Zephyrian space, Admiral Crixtel was beginning to notice that something had changed. Human resistance was becoming more organized and effective. Their ships, while still using older technology, were flying in patterns that made them much harder to hit. "Admiral," his tactical officer called out, "we're detecting unusual activity from the human fleet approaching Sector 7. Crixtel studied the display. The human ships were moving in a formation he had never seen before. It looked random, but somehow every ship seemed to know exactly where every other ship would be at any moment. "They're trying some new tactic," he said. "It won't work. Order all ships to attack pattern Delta." But when the Zephyrian fleet moved to attack, the human ships seemed to flow around their weapons like water. Every shot the Zephyrians fired missed its target. The humans were not just dodging. They were predicting where the Zephyrian ships would shoot before the Zephyrians themselves knew. How are they doing this? The tactical officer asked, panic creeping into his voice. Krikstel had no answer. According to all intelligence reports, humans had no technology that would allow them to predict enemy movements. Their computers were slower than Zephyrian systems. Their sensors were less advanced. Yet somehow they were avoiding every attack. Then the human ships began to fire back. Their weapons should have been too weak to damage Zephyrian armor. But the shots were hitting in precise locations that caused maximum damage. The humans were targeting weak points in the Zephyrian ship designs that even the Zephyrians themselves did not know existed. How do they know about our structural weaknesses? The tactical officer shouted. That information is classified at the highest levels. One by one, Zephyrian ships began to explode. Not from overwhelming firepower, but from precisely placed shots that caused cascade failures in their systems. Within an hour, Admiral Krikstel's entire fleet was destroyed except for his flagship. Retreat, he ordered. Send a message to High Command. We need to reassess human capabilities. But the human ships did not pursue. They simply watched as Krikstel's flagship limped away toward Zephyrian territory. On Earth, Dr. Park was staring at his latest creation. In just 6 months, he had developed technology that was decades ahead of anything humanity had possessed before the war. The new weapons could target enemy weak points automatically. The new shields could adapt to incoming attacks in real time. How are we doing this? Dr. Santos asked, looking at her own impossible inventions. It's like our brains have been upgraded. Dr. Park nodded. He had been thinking the same thing. Maybe they have been. Maybe this is how humans respond when their survival is threatened. Across the galaxy, other species were beginning to notice what was happening. The Galactic Council received reports from observers who had been monitoring the war. The reports all said the same thing. Humans were changing. They're not just learning to fight better, one observer reported. They're becoming better. Their children are smarter. Their scientists are making impossible discoveries. Their military tactics are beyond anything we've seen. The Council's senior members exchanged worried glances. They had heard stories about human adaptability, but seeing it happen was different. If humans could evolve this quickly in response to threats, what did that mean for the rest of the galaxy? Should we intervene? One delegate asked, in favor of which side? Another replied, the Zephyrians started this war, but now they might be fighting for their survival. Admiral Krikstel returned to Zephyrian space to find that human forces had somehow followed him. Ships that looked like human designs, but incorporated technology that should not have existed, were appearing throughout the Empire. They moved with impossible speed and struck with impossible precision. How many ships do the humans have? He asked his intelligence officer. That's the problem, Admiral. We don't know. They're building new ones faster than we can count them, using designs that didn't exist last month. Krikstel stared at the tactical display. Red marks showed human forces throughout Zephyrian space. They were not just attacking military targets. They were systematically dismantling the Empire's ability to function. Power plants, communication networks, food production facilities, even civilian transportation systems were being disabled with surgical precision. But the humans were not killing civilians. Instead, they were forcing entire populations to evacuate to overcrowded refugee camps on the few remaining Zephyrian worlds. They're not trying to destroy us, the intelligence officer realized. They're trying to make our civilization collapse. Krikstel understood then what was happening. The humans had not just learned to fight the Zephyrian Empire. They had learned to be everything the Zephyrian Empire was, but better. They had studied Zephyrian technology and improved it. They had analyzed Zephyrian tactics and surpassed them. They had examined Zephyrian, weaknesses and exploited them perfectly. The war that had started with humans as the victims was ending with humans as something entirely new. They had evolved past their attackers in every way that mattered. 3 years after the first Zephyrian attack, the Empire surrendered unconditionally. Of the 200 star systems they had once controlled, only 3 remained habitable. The rest had been systematically stripped of everything needed to support advanced civilization. The Zephyrians, who remained, were no longer a spacefaring species. They were farmers and refugees, dependent on galactic charity for survival. And throughout the galaxy, a new warning began to spread. A warning about what happened when humans were threatened with extinction. The warning that would echo through space for generations to come. Commander Vextar studied the sensor readings from his command ship. His green-scaled hands moved across the controls as he examined the data his scouts had brought him. There, in the disputed Kethmoran frontier territory, was exactly what he had been looking for. A human research station, he said to his second-in-command. Isolated, lightly defended, and full of technology we can study. Lieutenant Sekros shifted nervously beside him. Commander, the regulations clearly state that any human installations should be reported to High Command before action is taken. Vextar snorted in disgust. Regulations written by cowards who believe old stories. He pointed at the sensor display. Look at this station. 47 humans total. No military escort. No heavy weapons. No shield generators strong enough to stop our guns. But the warning is a myth created to keep young species from claiming their rightful place in the galaxy. Vextar turned away from the display to face his crew. The Kethmoran Dominion has been expanding for 200 years. We have conquered 17 species and absorbed their technology. Are we supposed to fear mammals who barely learn to travel between stars? The bridge crew remained silent. Most of them had heard the warning their entire lives. Every communication channel in the galaxy broadcast it regularly. But their commander was right about one thing. No one had tested it in over 60 years. Maybe it really was just an old story. Sir, the communications officer spoke up. I'm detecting a signal from the station. They're broadcasting something. Put it on speakers. A calm human voice filled the bridge. Unknown vessels, this is Research Station Echo 7. We have detected your approach. Please state your intentions. Vextar smiled, showing his sharp teeth. Open a channel. Channel open, Commander. Human Station, this is Commander Vextar of the Kethmoran Dominion. You are in territory claimed by our government. Surrender immediately or we will take your station by force. There was a long pause before the human voice responded. Commander Vextar, we are conducting peaceful research in neutral space according to galactic law. We request that you respect our right to be here. Your rights are whatever I say they are, Vextar replied. You have 1 hour to evacuate, then we will board your station and claim it for the Dominion. I understand, the human voice said. Please hold while we consider your demand. The channel closed. Vextar turned to his weapons officer. Begin charging all guns. If they resist, destroy their defensive systems, but keep the main station intact. I want to see what kind of research these humans have been doing. Lieutenant Sekros approached his commander privately. Sir, I still think we should contact High Command. The penalty for attacking humans without authorization is severe. The penalty for letting opportunities slip away is worse, Vextar replied. When I present High Command with captured human technology, they will forget any concerns they had about following regulations. An hour passed quickly. The human station made no attempt to evacuate. No ships launched from their docking bays. No emergency signals were sent to human space. They simply waited. Time is up, Vextar announced. Open fire. The Kethmoran ships unleashed their weapons on the small research station. The first shots disabled the station's communication array and destroyed their shuttle bay. The second wave knocked out their power generators and life support systems. The humans should have surrendered immediately. Instead, something unexpected happened. "Commander," the sensor operator called out. "The station just sent a transmission. A very powerful one." "To where?" "I'm not sure, sir." The signal was compressed and encrypted beyond anything I've seen before. It was directed toward human space, but it used technology that's not in any of our intelligence databases. Vexstar frowned. What could they possibly have said in one short transmission? "Unknown, sir. But whatever it was, they wanted to make sure it got through." "No matter. Prepare boarding parties. I want that station searched from top to bottom." The Kethmorn assault ships moved into dock with the crippled research station. Soldiers in full armor prepared to board and capture any humans who had survived the attack. According to intelligence reports, humans were not particularly strong or fast compared to Kethmoran warriors. First boarding team. Report, Vextar ordered as his soldiers entered the station. "We're inside, Commander. Moving toward the main laboratory section. No resistance so far. Any signs of the humans?" "Negative. The corridors are empty. They might be hiding in the central areas." Vextar watched the progress of his troops on the tactical display. The station was small, and his soldiers should have found the humans quickly. But as minutes passed, his teams reported finding empty room after empty room. "Commander," came a voice over the radio. "We found them. They're all in the main laboratory." "Are they armed?" "Are they resisting?" "No, sir. They're working." Vextar blinked in surprise. "Working?" "Yes, sir. They have computers running, experiments in progress, and they're all just sitting at their stations like nothing happened. They looked up when we came in, but they haven't tried to run or fight. Bring me their leader." A few minutes later, a middle-aged human woman was escorted onto Vextar's bridge. She was small and plain-looking, wearing a simple laboratory uniform. She did not look like someone who should inspire fear across the galaxy. "I am Dr. Elizabeth Hayes, Station Director," she said calmly. "You are Commander Vextar, I assume?" "You assume correctly. Why did you not evacuate when I gave you the chance?" Dr. Hayes smiled. "Because our work here is too important to abandon." "What kind of work requires 47 humans in the middle of nowhere?" "Observation," Dr. Hayes replied. "We've been watching your ships for the past 6 months. Your tactics, your technology, your biology. Very fascinating." Vextar felt a chill run down his spine. "You've been spying on us?" "Not spying, studying. We wanted to understand how the Kethmoran military operates. Your attack has provided us with excellent data about your weapons, ship designs, and crew capabilities. That information will do you no good now that you're my prisoners." Dr. Hayes shook her head. "Oh, we're not your prisoners, Commander. You're our research subjects." "What do you mean?" "The transmission we sent when you attacked us was very simple. It contained everything we've learned about your species over the past 6 months, along with a message. Protocol Omega initiated. Evolution threshold reached." Vextar grabbed the human by her uniform. "What does that mean?" "It means you've made a terrible mistake," Dr. Hayes said, still smiling. "You see, Commander, we weren't conducting research here. We were conducting research on you. And now that you've attacked us, every human in the galaxy will know exactly how to defeat your species." "That's impossible. You couldn't have learned enough about us in 6 months to what?" "To understand that Kethmoran biology requires a specific type of protein that can only be produced on worlds with certain atmospheric conditions. To discover that your ship's power systems have a critical weakness that can be exploited with the right frequency of electromagnetic pulse. To figure out that your military tactics are based on a rigid hierarchy that collapses when certain command structures are disrupted. Vexstar stared at the human in shock. Everything she had said was classified military information. How could they possibly know such things? You want to know the really interesting part? Dr. Hayes continued. We weren't even supposed to be studying your military capabilities. We were here to research stellar mechanics. But when your ship started patrolling this area, we got curious. Humans are naturally curious about their neighbors. Sir, Lieutenant Sekros called from across the bridge. We're receiving multiple emergency communications from our other ships in the system. What kind of emergencies? They're reporting system malfunctions, sir. Power failures, navigation errors, communication breakdowns. All different problems, but they're happening to every ship at the same time. Vexstar looked at Dr. Hayes, who was still smiling. What did you do? Nothing yet. But the transmission we sent contained very specific information about how to disable Kethmoran technology. By now, that information has reached human space and been distributed to every human research facility, military base, and civilian colony. Sir, the communications officer called out urgently. We're detecting multiple ships approaching from human space. They're using technology I don't recognize. How many ships? I can't tell, sir. They're using some kind of stealth system that's interfering with our sensors. But there are at least 20, possibly many more. Vexstar turned back to Dr. Hayes. This is an act of war. No, Commander. This is an act of evolution. You attacked humans, so now humans will adapt to eliminate the threat you represent. She paused thoughtfully. It's really quite simple. We don't want to fight you, but you've given us no choice but to evolve past you. Sir, came another urgent call from the communication station. I'm receiving a message from the approaching human fleet. They're requesting our immediate surrender. Tell them we refuse, Vexstar snarled. Sir, the communications officer said quietly, they're not just requesting our surrender. They're demanding the surrender of all Kethmoran military forces throughout the Dominion. And, sir, they know the location of every single one of our ships and bases. Dr. Hayes nodded approvingly. As I said, we've been very thorough in our research. 3 months after Commander Vexstar's attack on Research Station Echo 7, the Kethmoran Dominion was falling apart. General Dekvar stood in the emergency command center on the capital world of Kethmora Prime, staring at tactical displays that showed disaster after disaster. Red markers indicated lost colonies. Yellow markers showed worlds under attack. Green markers, which should have indicated secure Kethmoran territory, were disappearing from the map faster than his staff could update the displays. Report, he ordered his intelligence chief. Colonel Maxtos consulted his datapad with shaking hands. We have lost 17 colony worlds in the past week. Not destroyed, evacuated. The humans are forcing our populations to leave, but they're providing safe transport to refugee camps in neutral space. How are they moving so quickly? Our scouts report only small human fleets, yet they're attacking hundreds of targets simultaneously. That's the problem, sir. They're not using large fleets. They're using precision strikes with perfect knowledge of our weaknesses. Colonel Maxtos brought up a recording on the main display. This is footage from the Battle of Sektara Station yesterday. General Dekvar watched as 6 human ships approached the heavily defended military base. Sektara Station had been built to withstand attacks from entire fleets, but the human ships seemed to know exactly where to strike. They targeted specific points on the station's hull with surgical precision, causing cascade failures that shut down all defensive systems within minutes. How did they know where to hit us? The general asked. They seem to know everything about our technology, sir. Our shield generators, our weapon systems, our life support networks. They know the weak points of every piece of equipment we use. That's impossible. Most of that information is classified at the highest levels. Sir, another officer interrupted. We're receiving reports from our remaining colonies. The humans aren't just attacking military targets. They're systematically dismantling our infrastructure. General Vekvar turned to the communications display. Messages were pouring in from across Kethmoran space. Power plants were being disabled with precisely targeted electromagnetic pulses. Communication networks were being shut down by computer viruses that seemed custom-designed for Kethmoran systems. Food production facilities were being raided and their equipment removed or destroyed. But the strangest reports were about the humans themselves. Sir, Colonel Mexto said quietly, there's something else. Our field commanders are reporting that the humans they're fighting seem different. Different how? Faster than normal human responses should allow. More intelligent than our intelligence profile suggested. And they appear to predict our tactics before we implement them. The colonel paused. Sir, it's like they're not fighting the same humans who existed 6 months ago. General Vekvar had been a soldier for 40 years. He had fought against many species and won most of his battles through superior strategy and better technology. But this was unlike anything he had ever experienced. The humans weren't just winning. They were demonstrating capabilities that seemed impossible. Show me the intelligence report on human capabilities, he ordered. Colonel Mextos brought up the files. Standard human reaction time, 0.2 seconds. Observed human reaction time in current conflict, 0.05 seconds. Standard human learning curve for new technology, several weeks. Observed learning curve, minutes. Standard human strategic planning, reactive to enemy movements. Observed strategic planning, predictive of enemy movements with 98% accuracy. You're telling me that humans have become 4 times faster, learn hundreds of times quicker, and can predict our actions with near-perfect accuracy? Yes, sir. And that's not even the strangest part. Colonel Maxtow switched to another file. We've been monitoring human space through our deep cover agents. Sir, their entire civilization appears to be changing. The display showed surveillance footage from human worlds. Children who should have been in elementary school were attending university lectures. Scientists who had been working on basic research were suddenly producing breakthrough discoveries. Engineers were building new types of ships using technology that had not existed before the conflict started. This footage is from New Geneva University on Earth, Colonel Mextos explained. That boy in the front row is 8 years old. He's taking advanced courses in quantum physics and military strategy. One child does not represent their entire species. Sir, every human child born in the past 3 months is showing similar development. And it's not just children. Adult humans are demonstrating enhanced capabilities across their entire population. General Vakvar watched the footage in growing horror. The humans in the recording moved with purpose and intelligence that seemed beyond what their species had, possessed just months earlier. They were not just learning to fight the Kethmoran Dominion. They were becoming something that made the Dominion irrelevant. Sir, came an urgent call from the communication station. We're receiving a priority message from Admiral Kexnara's fleet. Put it through. The image of Admiral Kexnara appeared on the screen. The veteran commander looked exhausted and frightened. Behind him, warning lights flashed and alarms sounded. General Dekvar, I must report the loss of the Outer Rim fleet. We encountered a human task force near the Zenthara system. They knew everything about our formation, our weapons, even our individual ship capabilities. How many human ships attacked you? 3, sir. Just 3 ships against our entire fleet of 47 vessels. The Admiral paused, struggling to find words. Sir, they didn't just defeat us. They captured our ships using boarding techniques that should have been impossible. They knew exactly how to shut down our security systems. disable our weapons, and neutralize our crews without causing permanent harm. Are you saying 3 human ships captured 47 Kethmoran vessels? Not captured, sir. Disabled and evacuated. They forced us to abandon our ships, then provided transport to refugee processing stations. The humans are treating our crews well, but they've made it clear that we will not be getting our ships back. General Dekvar closed the connection and turned to his staff. Status report on our remaining military assets. Sir, we have lost 60% of our fleet strength. 30% is currently engaged with human forces and requesting immediate reinforcement. The remaining 10% is protecting our core worlds. And our core worlds? Under siege, sir. Human forces have blockaded all major planets. They're not attacking civilian targets, but they're preventing any military supplies from reaching our remaining bases. General Dekvar understood what was happening. The humans were not trying to destroy the Kethmoran Dominion through overwhelming force. Instead, they were systematically removing every capability that made the Dominion function as an advanced civilization. Sir, Colonel Mexto said quietly, there's something else you need to know. We've been monitoring galactic communications. Other species are watching this conflict very carefully. What are they saying? Most are staying completely neutral, sir. But some are expressing concern about what will happen after the Dominion falls. If humans can evolve this rapidly in response to a military threat, what does that mean for the rest of the galaxy? Are any species offering to help us? No, sir. In fact, several species that were formerly neutral toward humans are now requesting formal alliance agreements. They want to ensure they're on humanity's good side before this conflict ends. General Dekvar sat heavily in his command chair. He thought about Commander Vexstar, who had started this disaster by attacking a single research station. The young commander had believed that humans were weak, and that their reputation was built on ancient myths. Now the Kethmoran Dominion was paying the price for that ignorance. Sir, the communications officer called out. We're receiving a message from the human fleet. They're requesting a meeting to discuss terms for ending the conflict. Terms for our surrender, you mean? No, sir. Terms for the transition of Kethmoran populations to protected status under galactic law. General Dekvar understood what that meant. The humans were not interested in ruling over conquered Kethmoran territory. They wanted to ensure that the Kethmoran people would survive, but without the capability to threaten anyone ever again. Accept their request, he said finally. Set up the meeting. As his staff began making arrangements, General Dekvar looked at the tactical display one more time. The red and yellow markers continued to spread across what had once been Kethmoran space. An empire that had taken 200 years to build was being dismantled in a matter of months, but the humans were not destroying it out of anger or hatred. They were doing it because the Kethmoran Dominion had proven itself to be a threat to human survival. And when humans were threatened with extinction, they evolved past their enemies so completely that the enemies ceased to matter. The warning that echoed throughout the galaxy had been proven correct once again. And General Dekvar wondered how many more young species would have to learn this lesson the hard way before the galaxy finally understood what those words truly meant. Outside his window, he could see human ships in orbit around Kethmar Prime. They moved with precision and purpose, crewed by beings who had become something more than they had been just months before. 1 year after the Kethmoran incident, Ambassador Zethkar stood before the Galactic Council on Harmony 7 Station. The Great Assembly Hall was filled with delegates from hundreds of species, all gathered for the formal renewal of the warning that had protected them for over a century. Zethkar looked different than he had a year ago. His blue skin had darker marks around his eyes from sleepless nights spent working with Kethmoran refugees. His once proud military bearing had been replaced by the careful movements of someone who had seen too much suffering. "Honorable delegates," Zethkar began, his voice carrying across the vast chamber. "I stand before you as the official liaison for the former Kethmoran Dominion territories. I am here to provide testimony for the renewal of the Galactic Warning regarding human contact protocols." The chamber fell silent. Everyone knew what had happened to the Kethmoran Dominion, but few had heard first-hand accounts from someone who had witnessed the aftermath. "1 year ago," Zethkar continued, "the Kethmoran Dominion controlled 137 star systems. Their military consisted of over 2,000 ships, and their population numbered 43 billion individuals. Today, the Dominion no longer exists." He paused to let that information settle in. Around the chamber, delegates from younger species shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The older delegates remained perfectly still, having seen this pattern before. The former Kethmoran territories are now empty of all advanced technology. Their populations have been relocated to agricultural worlds under galactic protection. Their military capability has been completely eliminated. This was accomplished by human forces in less than 8 months. A delegate from the Hegemony Coalition raised a tentacle. "Ambassador Zethkar, can you provide specific details about human military capabilities demonstrated during this conflict?" Zethkar nodded. The humans deployed approximately 300 ships total. These vessels used technology that did not exist before the conflict began. Human forces demonstrated perfect knowledge of Kethmoran weaknesses, tactical preferences, and technological limitations, despite having minimal previous contact with Kethmoran forces. "How is such rapid technological development possible?" asked a delegate from the Trade Federation. "That question brings me to the heart of my testimony," Zethkar replied. "The humans did not simply develop new technology. They evolved. Physically, mentally, and technologically, the human species became something different during the course of the conflict." He activated a display showing medical data. Human children born during the conflict showed enhanced cognitive abilities from birth. Adult humans demonstrated reaction times far beyond their species' normal capabilities. Human scientists made breakthrough discoveries at rates that our best analysts describe as impossible. The delegate from the academic consortium spoke up. "Are you suggesting that humans can evolve during their individual lifetimes?" "I am stating that they did evolve during their individual lifetimes. We have medical scans, cognitive tests, and performance evaluations to prove it." Zethkar changed the display to show before and after comparisons. These are brain scans from the same human individuals taken 6 months apart during the conflict. The changes are undeniable. A worried murmur ran through the assembly. The implications of such rapid evolution were staggering. Furthermore, Zethkar continued, this evolution was not limited to humans directly involved in the conflict. Across all human space, their entire species showed enhanced capabilities. Children in schools, scientists in laboratories, engineers in factories, all demonstrated improved abilities that directly related to defeating the Kethmoran threat. The ancient keeper of records stepped forward from the shadows. "Ambassador Zethkar, did you observe any signs of aggression or expansionist behavior from humans after their victory?" "None whatsoever," Zethkar replied immediately. Human forces were meticulous about protecting Kethmoran civilians. They provided medical aid, food supplies, and safe transport to refugee settlements. At no point did they attempt to claim Kethmoran territory or resources for themselves. Then what happened to those territories? They were abandoned. The humans disabled all advanced technology and left. The former Kethmoran worlds are now empty systems with functioning biospheres but no infrastructure. Zethkar paused. It was not conquest. It was surgical removal of a threat. A young delegate from the recently spacefaring Tethanari species stood up. Ambassador Zethkar, surely there must be some way to defend against such capabilities? Some strategy or technology that could resist human evolution? The chamber fell completely silent. This was the question that terrified every military leader in the galaxy. Zethkar looked directly at the young delegate. In the 847 years since the Galactic Council began keeping records, exactly 15 species have attacked humans. 3 are completely extinct. 7 exist only as small refugee populations. 5 have voluntarily abandoned all military technology and live as agricultural communities. The remaining 2 are the Zephyrians and now the Kethmorans. He let the mathematics sink in before continuing. 0 species that have attacked humans have retained their original form of civilization. 0 species have found a way to resist human evolution when threatened. 0 species have won a conflict with humans. The Thanari delegate sat down slowly, his face pale. But, Zethkar added, 832 species have had peaceful contact with humans and benefited greatly from the relationship. Human medical technology has extended lifespans across the galaxy. Human agricultural techniques have ended hunger on dozens of worlds. Human scientists have shared discoveries that advanced many civilizations by centuries. The Keeper of Records nodded approvingly. This brings us to the true meaning of the warning. Zethkar activated a new display showing the official text that would be broadcast across all known space for the next century. The warning is not a threat. It is information. It tells every species in the galaxy exactly what will happen if they choose to attack humans. The text appeared in hundreds of languages. Warning to all species. If they attack humans, they will become extinct. The key word, Zethkar explained, is they. The warning does not say humans will destroy their attackers. It says the attackers will become extinct. Because when humans are threatened with extinction, they evolve past their enemies so completely that those enemies can no longer exist as they were. A delegate from the Science Coalition asked, "Is this evolution permanent? Do humans retain these enhanced capabilities after conflicts end?" "Unknown," Zethkar admitted. Human populations have returned to their pre-conflict behaviors in most observable ways. But the knowledge and technology they developed during the Kethmoran incident still exists. If threatened again, they would not need to evolve from their previous baseline. They would evolve from their new enhanced state. The implications of that statement sent another wave of concerned whispers through the assembly. The Keeper of Records stepped back to the center of the chamber. The vote before us today is simple. Do we renew the warning for another century? The vote was unanimous. Every single delegate, including the young Tethanari representative, voted in favor of renewal. After the session ended, Zethkar found himself back in the records hall, where his journey had begun a year earlier. The same ancient keeper stood before the same displays, but now Zethkar understood what he was seeing. "You knew what would happen," Zethkar said. "When I left here a year ago, you knew the Kethmorans would test the warning." "I suspected it was possible," the keeper replied. "Young species often believe they are different. They think their technology is superior, their tactics are better, their courage is greater, and they're always wrong. Always." The keeper turned to face Zethkar. "But you understand now why the warning exists." Zethkar nodded. "It's not about human aggression. It's about human adaptation. Every other species in the galaxy evolved to survive their environment. Humans evolved to make their environment survive them. And when you threaten them, they remember how." The keeper smiled, a rare expression for one of his ancient species. "You have learned well, Ambassador. Now you must help teach others." As Zethkar prepared to leave the records hall, he thought about his new assignment. He would be traveling to the Outer Rim territories again, but this time his mission was different. Instead of diplomatic negotiations, he would be educating young species about the realities of galactic politics. He would tell them about the warning. He would explain what it meant. He would show them the records of what happened to those who ignored it. And hopefully, he would prevent another species from learning the hard way that some warnings exist not as threats, but as mercy. Outside the records hall, the galaxy continued its ancient dance. Trade ships moved between worlds. Explorers searched for new life. Scientists made discoveries, and children played under alien suns. Most species lived in peace with their neighbors, including the quiet, friendly humans who had become an integral part of galactic civilization. But throughout all known space, on every communication channel, in every language that had ever been recorded, the same message continued to broadcast. Warning to all species: if they attack humans, they will become extinct.